Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. We're about to be joined by one of Charlie Kirk's closest friends, Donald Trump Jr., for Don's first interview since Charlie's passing yesterday. Later in the show, Tucker Carlson will be here, and so will Benny Johnson, both of whom knew Charlie well. But first, we want to update you on the latest in the search to find his assassin, because the news is breaking by the minute in what we know right now about motive. Charlie Kirk's killer engraved the ammunition used to murder him with pro-transgender ideology, according to reporting in multiple outlets, to the surprise of literally no one. I have a lot of thoughts on this. I have more to report to you, okay? But I just have to pause here. Of course, that's the first thing I thought yesterday. I'm sure it ran through a lot of the minds of you watching this program as we did it live. Charlie was outspoken on the trans issue and many issues. But there's one particular group that's been running around killing Americans in the name of transgender ideology lately, and it's transgender activists or individuals or those who proclaim that they are. Doesn't mean they're all murderous, but there's a particularly high percentage committing crimes these days. And it is responsible and important to say so, which is what Charlie was doing. The thought that this was a person acting to avenge some sort of trans person or objecting to Charlie's stance on the trans issue is entirely chilling to me, because when Charlie and I first became friends, this was an issue he wasn't even talking about that much, but he was resonating with some on the right and was a growing issue. And he told me that one of the reasons why I kept coming into his algorithm and catching his attention was because we were talking about this issue, and his sister, who's also outspoken and a Christian, had been forwarding him, I guess, a bunch of videos she'd seen on our show. That's what he told me. And of course, like many on the right, it became more and more in his lens over the past few years because it's grown in the public sphere. It's hard to avoid. And you've got the vast majority of Americans right now ignoring it out of a sense of politeness or kindness, a misperceived sense of kindness, and not saying anything about it. And then you've got this smaller faction of us who have been jumping up and down about it. And Charlie became one of them. And I, of course, had become one of them and am one of them and will continue to be one of them. And on that front, to Charlie's killer, there's no such thing as a trans child. Men cannot have babies or chest feed an infant. A man cannot become a woman. A woman cannot become a man. Those are truths, and you will hear them here relentlessly. And it won't just be me. It'll be many of us on the right who will not be silenced and who will make it our mission now to continue saying all the things that you thought you silenced with that bullet. And guess what? You can't take us all out. If people are true to Charlie's legacy, if college students and high school students who felt inspired at all by Charlie feel the need to live up to his example, they'll say it too. And they can't take us all out for speaking the truth about one of the most divisive, awful issues we've ever had infect our culture. I would love to say the left is learning, that the media is learning, and that now that they see yet again that this was an issue behind a brutal assassination, a murder of one of our national gems, that they'll see the error of their ways, that they'll start realizing they cannot keep coddling this dangerous ideology. But I know it won't be this way. I know it's not true. I know because I understand the media, and I know because I saw CNN after Steven Crowder was the first to report this, what was on the cartridge. CNN, and then the Wall Street Journal ultimately matched his reporting, but he broke it, Steven Crowder. CNN popped up a chyron on their screen and put up an article at CNN.com that said cultural phrases were engraved. Cultural phrases were engraved on the cartridges. Here's what the reporting actually says. That it was phrases on the cartridges expressing, quoting here, expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. Transgender and anti-fascist ideology, not cultural phrases. And CNN fucking knows that and won't write it because it's still a sacred cow. You can't say anything about the transgender thing because they're so unstable, you might cause another one to do it. And because they're in the protected category that cannot be criticized, or you're a bigot. How many times has that word been used against me for speaking truth on trans? Me, Billboard Chris, Riley Gaines, take your pick. Anyone on the right, anyone who speaks the truth about this issue, and not just this issue. Not just this issue. The anti-fascist ideology is clearly a reference to Charlie's Trump support, because that's what the left says about Trump. He's a fascist. His attempts to undo Joe Biden's immigration mess. That's fascism. Take your pick. And the left and the media, but I repeat myself, uses these phrases about him, this phrase, as though it's not even controversial. It's regularly thrown out there as though it's just factual. But when it comes to actual facts about trans violence, that needs to be buried with amorphous, meaningless phrases like cultural phrases were on the ammo. The Steven Crowder reporting this morning, I pulled it up for you, was given to him, he reports, by an ATF source. And it's an ATF, or by a law enforcement source, and it is an ATF document. And it reads in part as follows. This is clearly an ATF write-up of what they've learned so far, some of which was repeated in the FBI presser this morning, some of which was not. On September 10th, at approximately 12:24 p.m., conservative political influencer Charlie Kirk was shot and killed at the Utah Valley University in Utah. Mr. Kirk was speaking at the university as part of the American Comeback Tour. Multiple law enforcement agencies responded immediately. The suspect fired one shot from an elevated position on a rooftop in an adjacent building on the campus, and surveillance video shows the suspect jumping off and fleeing the area on foot. ATF and other law enforcement located an older model imported Mauser .30-06 caliber bolt action rifle wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near the campus. All of this has been confirmed by the FBI after the fact, after Stevens' report. Wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near the campus. The location of the firearm appears to match the suspect's route of travel. The spent cartridge was still chambered in addition to 3 unspent rounds at the top Fed magazine. All cartridges have engraved wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. What the exact quotes are, we don't know. An emergency trace has been submitted to an ATF law enforcement working leads generated by the trace. The firearm and ammo have been taken by the FBI for DNA analysis and fingerprint impressions. Upon completion of forensics, the firearm will be disassembled for additional importer information. Multiple people of interest having contacted or detained because of eyewitness testimony and review of video footage have been, I guess they meant it right. The primary suspect is yet to be identified. ATF is assisting the investigation with multiple other federal, state, and local partners. The case is co-led by the FBI and the Utah Bureau of Investigation, State Bureau. Now, the FBI has also just released 2 images of what they call a person of interest. This just happened. It's 12:09 Eastern on Thursday. He is seen here with a baseball hat, sunglasses, and a shirt that appears to have an American flag on it, along with something else, though it's difficult to decipher. Here's another image taken from a different angle. Again, you can see he's wearing blue jeans, a dark shirt, sunglasses, and a hat. And on the front of his shirt, there appears to be a flag with something else on it. He appears to be white, young, male, in his early 20s. If you have any information on this individual and law enforcement is asking for your help, you are asked to call the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-225-5324. They don't have him. He remains at large and obviously is considered dangerous. This morning, the FBI held a press conference and reported the following. Investigators have obtained, quote, high-quality video of the assassin, but will not yet release that to the public. The suspect, who the FBI referred to as a man, appears to be, they said, quote, of college age. Other evidence they have collected includes a palm imprint, they said, on the gun, a forearm imprint, and, quote, a footwear impression. Obviously, we believe that's from the ground, leading to or from the college. They also have tracked the shooter's movements from the moment he arrived on campus, thanks to all the security cameras that they have, right up to the moment he escaped. Take a listen.
Through all that work last night, we were able to make a few breakthroughs. We were able to track the movements of the shooter. Starting at 11:52 a.m., the subject arrived on campus, shortly away from campus. We have tracked his movements onto the campus, through the stairwells, up to the roof, across the roof to a shooting location. After the shooting, we were able to track his movements as he moved to the other side of the building, jumped off of the building, and fled off of the campus and into a neighborhood. Our investigators have worked through those neighborhoods, contacting anybody they can with doorbell cameras, witnesses, and have thoroughly worked through those communities, trying to identify any leads. We do have good video footage of this individual. We are not going to release that at this time. We are working through some technologies and some ways to identify this individual. If we are unsuccessful, we will reach out to you as the media and we will push that publicly to help us identify them. But we are confident in our abilities right now, and we would like to move forward in a manner that keeps everyone safe and moves this process appropriately.
Just getting this in, and it's no surprise, per the New York Times, efforts to identify the suspect through facial recognition technology did not work. And that's why they are now asking for the public's help to catch him. It's amazing. He appears young in the pictures, and that would track because virtually all of us could be caught by facial recognition. I mean, it's quite vast, the number of pictures that they have of all of us online, not just people like me who are more familiar, but any of us. We had somebody on who walked us through the vast abilities of the facial recognition technology. They can get you when you're just 3/4 of a face, 2/3 of a face, 1/3 of a face. So I suppose the fact that this guy's young limits the number of public pictures of him. Again, assuming it's a him, it looks like a him on the limited pictures that they've released. And what they've said is that they've referred to him as he. The New York Times also reported a short time ago, citing its law enforcement sources, that the weapon and the ammo are being traced by ATF analysts in West Virginia. But that evidence has not yet led to a person of interest. In short, the FBI reported literally everything that was in the Steven Crowder ATF report, except what was written on the cartridges. And I believe we'll get to that. There wasn't a reporter there who asked those questions because clearly no one there follows Steven Crowder, because the reporters in that room probably think Steven Crowder is not someone they should pay any attention to. They probably think he doesn't have any credibility because they don't know anything about our side. They don't know anything about truth. Yesterday, when I was reporting the news that Charlie had died, and I'm seeing the reporting from Just the News, John Solomon, and I'm seeing the reporting from Deseret, and I know these are right. I trust them. And the old mainstream news reporter in me was waiting. I was thinking, well, the AP has to say it. The New York Times has to say it. And then it just dawned on me in real time, what am I doing? I don't listen to them. I don't go to them for my news. I go to John Solomon. I do go to Deseret. I do listen to Steven Crowder, whose experience in reporting law enforcement leaks has been impeccable. And he had it right, and he's been verified now in large part by the FBI directly and the Wall Street Journal matching his reporting, including on the trans and Antifa or anti-fascist messaging that was on the cartridges. More on that as we get it. Joining me now is Donald Trump Jr. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Why are elite athletes, business leaders, and high performers turning to Armra Colostrum? Armra Colostrum is nature's first whole food, packed with over 400 bioactive nutrients that work at the cellular level to support lean muscle growth, accelerate recovery, and fuel performance, all without artificial stimulants or synthetic ingredients. Whether you are training hard or managing a busy schedule or just simply looking for an edge, Armra says it can help optimize your body for peak output. Armra Colostrum reports to enhance metabolism, improve nutrient absorption, and support hormone balance for better energy and fat-burning potential. Additional benefits include support for hair growth, skin radiance, and faster recovery after intense activity, making it a powerful tool for anyone looking to perform at their best. And here's a special offer. Receive 30% off your first subscription order. Just go to armra.com/Megyn or enter code Megyn at checkout. That's ARMRA.com/Megyn to get 30% off your first subscription order. Don, thank you so much for being with us today. Let me just ask you first for your reaction to the horrible news. I know you've said that Charlie was like a brother to you.
He was. I honestly have no words to describe it. I got the call yesterday and I was in shock. I mean, it's the third time I've got that call in a little over a year about, a close friend or loved one, almost being killed, because that was when we didn't actually know what was going on yet. And so obviously a lot of mix of emotions. Then we got a report, that, hey, he's getting blood, it may be stable. Then 20 minutes later, we got the news that he didn't make it. And so it was a really rough day for someone who's been a very close friend, confidant, incredible warrior for the things that we all believe in for a very long period of time. So it's been hard.
Can you talk about the beginning of your relationship and how you got to know him?
It's actually sort of funny. And you remember these days because I was doing your show back on Fox News at the time. And a couple friends came up to me and said, hey, you got to meet this guy. He knows so much about politics. He wants to help out. And, I'm like, okay, give me some more information. Because, at the time we didn't know anything. We didn't know what was going on. We had, no idea about politics. I didn't know what a caucus was when we got to Iowa. It was we were clueless. And, they're like, okay, well, he's 20 years old. And I was like, just stop. Just stop. Like I go, if I need another person that doesn't know what's going on, like I can just go to the room next door. Like there is no shortage. There's no shortage of people who don't know what the hell's going on right now working on this thing. We just had a good message. We had people that could speak. And they were like, no, trust me on this one. They're good friends. So I took the meeting reluctantly and I sat down with Charlie Kirk for the first time. This must have been, I guess, end of 15. And in 5 minutes, I was like, oh my God, this kid's brilliant. I mean, this kid himself could be president one day. I saw a talent, perhaps, that's maybe my neck in politics, whether it was, Charlie or JD or a couple of the others. It's like, wait a second, I saw something there. And I was like, just congratulations, you're on my team. I think Turning Point had a, $1 million operating budget that year. And in the decade since, I mean, pushing 200 million, the guy was just incredible. And from that day, I mean, he literally, for the rest of the 16 campaign was basically, with me every day, fundraising, speaking, getting coffee. It didn't matter. There was no task that was beneath him. There was nothing there. He was just an incredible guy and a true warrior. And to watch how he's matured and had matured, even since then, is nothing short of astounding.
The amount of growth that he had over the next 9 years was just exponential. I mean, I can't think of anybody else who matched it in terms of their influence, their success, his growth as a man, as an orator, as a compelling public figure whose opinion mattered at all levels. At all levels, he had the president of the United States listening to him, down to my 14-year-old daughter. I mean, there's just not many people who can say that. Why, Don? What was it about him?
You know what? He could just relate to people. He could take complex things and explain them simply. He did so kindly as well. I mean, even his biggest detractors, I mean, on a daily basis, Charlie Kirk gave them a platform to debate these ideas. He gave them his platform that he actually worked for and created. He let them speak and he calmly, he'd push back with ideas, with words. And, I say, when they talk about him being a threat and you have all these, left-wing radical funded NGOs labeling him, domestic terrorist and these sorts of things. He wasn't a threat. Charlie was the kindest person I probably knew. I mean, Charlie was certainly the calmest, in many cases, the least aggressive of all the people, I know in politics. And, I guess his quote was, "When discourse ends, violence begins." That was his quote. And they killed him for it, Megyn. They fucking killed him. He gave them a platform. I guess the problem was, his real threat wasn't anything other than he was so effective. He gave them that platform. He'd push back with words and ideas. And in minutes, you'd see this on a college campus, some radical giving, just insane, leftist talking points, and he'd push back, and, they were left speechless. Many of them, they'd walk away just humbled, and I think half of them probably became believers. But the people who came to hear him speak, the people who, went in there with an open mind, they were like, oh, this is right. The indoctrination that we've dealt with since probably kindergarten is bullshit. The stuff that we're being force-fed by our college professors is absolute nonsense. And, I remember that. I was doing college campus tours with him in 2016. And even me, and I don't exactly shy away from these things. I was, wow, we're really going to go on a college campus? Like, okay, let's see what happens. And it was incredible. I remember one of the early ones we did. I think it was the University of Michigan. We get to Michigan and we get there, and of course the university makes it very difficult for us to get a room. So we three times oversold. They won't let us even have a platform, and then they got to make sure all the radicals get in. And I remember we're going to go on stage, and the Michigan State Police pulled us aside. They were there not because we had them, but they were just monitoring all of it. And they basically pulled me and Charlie aside and said, "Hey guys, we can't stop you from going out there, but we can't guarantee your safety, and we think it's a bad idea. You should cancel." And Charlie and I both sort of simultaneously looked at us and we're like, we'd rather take an ass kicking than give them that win and be silenced. And we went out there and we pushed back, and we had the haters and we had the protesters, and we went at them kindly with words. And you could see the entire dynamic of the room. It went from being, probably 60-40 leftist to like 90-10, 95-5 when people were like, wait a second, like, let these guys have a conversation, let them speak. And you could see the shift in the room. And Charlie did that day in and day out for 9 years till yesterday, when he was killed doing just that. And he changed so many minds. He got people to be unafraid to speak up and to speak out and to actually voice their opinion and to embrace common sense. It's truly a loss for our country.
Have you gotten to speak with Erica or his family at all, Don?
You know what? I haven't. I called pretty immediately. Erica actually called back while I was with Bettina. And, she called her back. Somehow it didn't go through, whatever it was. We saw the missed call, but nothing. And we tried calling back. But in that time was when we found out, it went from shot to stable and maybe okay to he had passed. And so we have not yet, unfortunately. And so, we obviously sent notes and whatever, but that's not going to matter much. What's going to matter to him in the end is going to be preserving the legacy of what he's created and not going away, not going to cower in a corner and die. We just got to fight back.
That's exactly right. I mean, I'll get to that in 1 second. Let me ask you about your dad, because he said he's going to speak with, I think, the family, Erica, I think, later today. He's mentioned that this morning at a 9/11 remembrance event, and also announced that he's going to award Charlie the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously. He also ordered the staff, the flags to go at half staff, which is very unusual for a private citizen. Can you talk about what Charlie meant to your dad?
A lot. I mean, I think, Charlie single-handedly, other than my father, I guess, would have been the single-handed most important player of the last election cycle, and probably, frankly, 2020 as well. I mean, the gains were being made, but I mean, I think he single-handedly won Arizona for us, probably Michigan, probably Wisconsin as well. Moved, the youth vote 20+ points. And again, that's not just youth vote to 18-year-olds. This is the 18 to 29 people who could actually vote. So significantly. I mean, especially the male. I mean, the male vote. Like a 40-point swing towards common sense and American values and decency. And, what were the things that they hated Charlie for speaking about? I mean, for, loving God, your country, as you pointed out in your monologue, sort of, men can't be women. I mean, this isn't exactly rocket science or anything that's all that controversial. He was just willing to say those things that were verboten for so many people for so long. He made it okay for them. So for my father, he meant a lot. I spoke to I don't know for sure, but I think, sort of unbeknownst to me, I think, my father was calling me, and I had just heard, from Charlie's team that was on the ground when it passed. So I think he may have heard it directly, sort of from me first. And he called me back later on that evening, and we're just, talking about it and how much he meant to my father and how good a fighter he was. And my father truly recognized his genius and his excellence, his work ethic, everything. It was amazing.
That's the thing, is like Charlie had a seat at the table. He had real influence in the administration with you guys, and all of it was earned. At just 31 years old, people recognized what a savant this kid was and how special he was, and his truly genius-like abilities to understand the seams in the story and to communicate with a group that had been totally ignored by all Republicans, Don, until Charlie came along and said, let's fight for them. Why not try to get the youth vote? Maybe we can get it.
100%. I mean, and again, when it's coming from, your peers, Charlie was of that age. Charlie was younger than most college students when he was speaking on college campuses and started doing that when we started doing it. He recognized, Megyn, that, we can scream in our echo chamber as much as we want, and, everyone can nod along because they agree with what you're saying. But he understood how important it was to, go to the places we weren't supposed to be and have that conversation and have that discourse. He went into the lion's den more than anyone. And again, when you're that age, it's a little bit more effective than sending, an 85-year-old establishment politician who can't possibly relate, doesn't understand social media, doesn't do his own, doesn't feel the vibe of what's going on. Charlie did those things. I was looking through photos yesterday, and it was pretty heart-wrenching. But I went back down to election day of 2016, and Charlie was in my office at Trump Tower in New York, and he's there, and it's a picture of him on my computer because I was doing radio, I was doing TV. He wasn't really even yet a presence. In sort of that digital media. Obviously had a social following, but was just starting. I remember, screaming at some of your colleagues on Fox News back in that year, be like, put this kid on. I'm telling you, he's really good. I had that conversation with Sean. I think the first time he was like, what? I can't, I'm not putting on a kid. Like, what do you, I'm like, just trust me, please, for the love of God, put him on. And he did. And that was it. He just, went like a rocket ship from there. And I have this picture. He was literally sitting on my desktop with access to my Twitter account, just putting out just the tweets, mobilizing people here, whatever message was going to work in whatever place was coming, literally as the time zones were shutting down, because, the polls closed on the East Coast at whatever it was, 7:00. Well, now we're switching to the Central time zone, and I'm getting on radio, and I think I did 100-something radio interviews that day. So he was manning the social feed, and it was just, you could see the willingness to just step into any role, any position, anywhere that he could move a needle. He just jumped in wholeheartedly.
He was doing it this election too, saying, I don't like what I'm seeing in Michigan, or he would pick the state and send out tweets, and we would all amplify them, letting people know, like, you need to get out. Like, this one's tight. Like, don't take anything for granted. He fought to the last minute and obviously had great results in 24. Don, it was 14 months ago that we were talking about the attempted assassination of your father by a shooter who got on a rooftop in a place he never should have been allowed to take a shot that was fatal for one man in the audience and was almost fatal for your dad. What do you make of the fact that Charlie, who was as cognizant as any of us of the dangers of that day and how close your dad came to being killed in that way, wound up dying in the exact same way by a different assassin's bullet?
It's just sick. I mean, and Charlie knew the threat. I mean, I know you, I'm sure, deal with it. I know I've dealt with it, and I've had, I think it was, in the first term, I was number 2 most threatened person, according to the Secret Service in government. We deal with these things every day. Charlie was well aware, but that was never going to stop him. And I think his faith, I mean, he was a true believer. He believed he was being handled by God to do what was right for our country, and there was nothing that was going to stop him. I mean, he had a security detail, but there's only so much you can do. Like I said, they almost killed the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party during a presidential election, and allowed that to happen. So you can take a lot of precaution, but you can't do everything. And I think this shows us, no one's there to protect you. No one's going to save you. A big part of the whole conservative ethos, and certainly Charlie, that individualism, you have to learn how to take care of yourself. You have to be able to do that. And I think his faith got him through that each and every day, because he understood the threat. He knew it. One of the last events I did with Charlie before the election, we were in Arizona, which again, I think him and his team at Turning Point single-handedly won for us. We were doing events all over the place, and there was we got a deranged letter about a threat to me at some event that we were doing. It was going to be basically a BYOB. It was bring your own ballot, not booze. Although I imagine there was probably some drinking because it was a college campus event. And I was like, we're going anyway. And it turns out at the last minute, I guess they caught the guy and before the event. But these things were a regular occurrence. These kinds of threats where they're literally threatening our lives or anyone that's effective. They've shown that. This isn't the bullshit that I see. Oh, well, it's violence from both sides. No, it's not. It's not violence from both sides, Megyn. It's violence coming from the left, created by the left. When you call someone a Nazi, when you call them a fascist, when you call them a dictator, and you say they're the greatest threat to democracy, every one of us has been the greatest threat to democracy, depending on, if they're leading the news cycle that day. Each and every day, they enabled this. They created it. It's not both ways. It's one way. And if it's not them calling us those things, it's their silence, like we saw from that just young Ukrainian woman just stabbed for no reason on the bus in the Carolinas 2 weeks ago. Absolute silence about it because it didn't go for the narrative. Rather than talking about a 14-time repeat offender who literally slit someone's throat on a bus, sitting there on her phone, minding her business. Guys like Charlie, myself, we talk about these things. We bring it up. And that puts us in their crosshairs, quite literally. I love your open monologue about, sort of the transgender bullshit. I've been talking about it for a long time, and that's where those threats are coming from. And you're 100% right, Megyn. Like, think about per capita. I can't name, including probably like Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, a group that is more violent per capita than the radical trans movement. Yep. I mean, when you think of the mass killings, when you think of this, each and every one, and I'm sure there's plenty that we don't even know about because they wouldn't release the manifesto like they didn't, in Wisconsin,
Nashville.
Or they refuse to do it because you're not allowed to talk about the truth, because, I'm sure it's totally normal. I'm sure people are totally sane after jacking themselves up on hormones given to them by some, rainbow-haired freak doctor because, they think men can somehow magically become women. I'm sure it has nothing to do with that, Megyn. It can't possibly, right? That wouldn't be convenient. It wouldn't be nice. But the reality is, we've shown, we've seen, they're not willing to be nice. Again, the violence is only going one way. Charlie, again, probably the kindest soul I know in politics, the least radicalized. He was just, again, effective because he was able to use his words so well. But to the left, words are violence, as we've heard so many times, because it doesn't suit their agenda, which I don't know what it is, actually. I mean, the irony of this is, you hear the stuff that they're saying, and it's like, just people they're actually insane. It's not like there's moderate Democrats anymore. I'm sure there are in Middle America some moderate Democrats, but they certainly have no representation in Congress or the Senate because, you need the crazy California or New York money, to fund those things, and therefore they never actually get there. So I believe there's moderate Democrat voters. I don't believe there's any moderate Democrats anymore. And, frankly, that's evidenced by some of the craziness and the insanity that we saw coming out of MSDNC yesterday and CNN, and blaming Charlie. He's to blame for this. I mean, he's to blame for this. It is truly sick. And
it's everywhere. It's still going. I have no tolerance for what's happening on Blue Sky with these lunatics. I am going to play one stop for you. It's of Jen Psaki having a conversation with Senator Mark Kelly. Here's just a bit.
But he put out a 4-minute video, and I'm not going to play the video. I don't want to play the video. But there was a line at the end that I think I just wanted to raise and read. At the end of this 4-minute video, he says, "For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now." And obviously, there's a lot of rhetoric that is problematic. A lot of it is coming from one particular side and from one particular building. But what can be done? I fear when this is an escalation already in less than 24 hours of this shooting.
Yeah, I think historically presidents have looked for opportunities to bring people together. Right now we need a president that'll bring the country together and not try to further, divide us.
It's unbelievable, Don.
I mean, it's mind-blowing. I mean, that they can say that with a straight face after vilifying everyone, after Jen Psaki, who I believe was press secretary still when Joe Biden got before that demonic red platform and vilified over 50% of the country. These same people spewing the idea that white men are the greatest domestic terror threat. It's like, I don't know, guys. Like, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, it's the radical trans that have killed. It feels like they've done practically every mass shooting in America for the last few years, but we're not allowed to talk about it. It's those responses that are so tone deaf, that are so sick, that you realized the debate with the left is over. They've lost the debate. They're not even trying to debate anymore. So they have to basically resort to violence. That's all they have left to get what they want. And they've historically shown that. I mean, I've always said, I've been saying it forever, we need, and this is not an encouragement of violence, but we've been playing two different games. They have been playing hardball forever while we sit back and we play t-ball. And even so many of the Republicans on the right, you saw sort of Rand Paul's, who I like and agree with a lot of what he says. But when he was talking about, well, maybe we should have let those drug dealers on the high-speed, cigarette boat come into America and give them. I was like, no. These people, fentanyl kills 100,000 Americans a year.
They're coming to kill our young people.
Funded regime that does this. We have the intelligence. Maybe if they come to America and we let them sell a little bit of their goods, maybe, Megyn, they'll come around and see it our way. Was it Jen Psaki or the other press secretary? No. Trendall Aragua only took over a few buildings in Aurora, Colorado, and Austin, Texas. It's only a few buildings. Just let them have the buildings. These people are nuts, Megyn. They're imbecile. They're not serious people.
What is it? What is that? Leads me to this question: what's next? Because there's a lot of talk about is now a moment to reach out, have a kumbaya moment with the other side, lower the temperature. Is now a moment to step over the other side and forge forward without them? Just what you say, we're winning. Just complete the victory without them.
Megyn. I'd love to do the former, but who is better at that or kinder in doing that than Charlie Kirk? And they killed him. I don't think it's possible. Again, you see it, the amount of normal people who aren't even political, who have they've hit a breaking point. They're not having these conversations on Twitter, I'm sure. They are sick of this crap. When my 12-year-old calls me, they killed Charlie Kirk. He's 12 years old. He found out before I could even call them and give them a heads up because they're seeing these things. My 6-year-old, my 18-year-old, all reaching out, and they're like, "Hey man, we are so sick of this stuff." Now maybe it's a little bit more personal to them because they know him, they knew Charlie, and they went through it twice with my father. I mean, I've had to, like I said earlier, I've had to deliver, sort of hard news to kids and try to explain stuff you should not have to explain to any kid 3 times now over the last 14 months. That's not acceptable. And again, you see what they're saying. And I'm not just talking about blue sky and, that's truly deranged. But these are the people who were in the Biden White House on TV saying these things. You saw the guy that got fired. Luckily, he got fired. I'm actually shocked.
Matthew Dowd.
Yeah, Matthew Dowd. They'll bring him back in 3 weeks probably, but they have to do the obligatory thing because even the sickos there were like, okay, that's probably a little step too far. I mean, they're saying these things on regular television. So I would love for there to go back, but I think what we have to do is we have to plow forward with our ideas, reaching out to those who are not indoctrinated, who haven't been infected with the woke mind virus. We get those people, let them watch it. I saw people saying, take down the video of what happened to Charlie. And trust me, and as someone who spoke to him every day for a decade, it was brutal to watch, but I think we have to watch it. I think we have to understand what they're capable of doing and what they will gladly do. It's not just Charlie. They'd go after anyone. They just don't know your name, maybe. Mm-hmm. They don't know you, so they don't know where to attack. But you think that if they'll try to take out a sitting president of the United States, if they'll try to and successfully take out Charlie Kirk, if they'll stab people on buses for no reason, you think they're not coming for you eventually. It's a truly scary thought, and we have to start thinking that way.
Don, he said the following about why he goes out there and why he approaches the Turning Point events the way he did. Here it is in SOT 9.
My name is Charlie Kirk, and I love America. Because I love talking with people I disagree with. Started an organization that's now in 1,000+ campuses to save the greatest culture and country ever to exist.
Do you feel necessary?
Well, considering I've been assaulted, followed, stalked, and had things thrown at me, the greatest protection I have is cameras. We record all of it so that we put on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens. Because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity. Marriages break apart when you stop talking, churches fall apart. And I think what makes this country on the verge of going to a place we don't want it to go right now is we're afraid to go to places like this and have these conversations. I'm not.
The cameras are what protect us, where people can see ideas collide. And it did have me wondering, would Charlie want that video out there? Would Charlie want to see what they resorted to stop his ideas?
I don't know. But I think so, because I think he'd want people to understand. The problem is you'd love to be able to shield it from his incredible young kids and his wife. But some guys clipped it, and I'm sure they're playing it with glee over on Blue Sky over and over again. I don't even want to see those machinations. But again, I think we have to understand where we are. That you could take a 31-year-old who is, again, one of the kindest people I've ever met, that just has conversations with people, a father of 2 young, incredible children, who's out there every day trying to have a conversation, and they would assassinate him in cold blood in front of thousands while he's simply trying to have a conversation, tells you everything you need to know about the left. And so, it's brutal. I certainly don't want my kids seeing it, but I do think adults may have to just understand the level of where we are at and really where the left is at. They have to understand that so that they can react accordingly, so they can take care of themselves, so that they can stay engaged, so they don't just show up to vote because Trump happens to be at the top of the ballot and he's our guy. No, we have to have representation from top to bottom, from the president down to the dog catcher. I truly hope that this instance, and I think Charlie would as well, that this just red pills even further the entire youth demographic of people who'd otherwise, perhaps be indifferent or apathetic to our election process, and just understand where we are. And no pun intended, but I think we really are at a turning point. I think we can harness that, and we can make sure that Charlie's legacy lives on by, again, continuing this dialogue. There's no one that can replace Charlie, I don't think. We have to do that collectively. We have to all be willing to be unafraid, outspoken. We cannot let them silence us. That's why they do this. If they don't like what you're saying, whether it was my father, whether it was Charlie, whether it was threats to the Supreme Court justices, if they don't like what they're getting, that's where they resort. We have to band together. We have to be so unified that that radical faction can't possibly continue to win elections. And I think if we do that, that would be an incredible thing for Charlie's legacy, and I think he'd be very proud of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I wonder what is going to happen at Turning Point. You're right. You can't replace Charlie Kirk. It is a big and important organization. Like what should happen? Is there anyone who could step in? Will it be a collective save by the rest of us? What do you see happening there?
Listen, there is some great talent. Again, I think Charlie is a unique individual. But if you would have asked in 2016, after Trump, who was there? There was no bench. It took the hardship of the Biden administration. It took those 4 years for America to realize how fragile our democracy is, how fragile our economy is, how the incompetence of the left, it can really affect your life. It took that for people to actually truly understand and appreciate Trump. So, I hope from this tragedy we understand all that is at stake, that we all step up. And I think you're right. I think it's a collective for now until someone steps up. I know, I probably spoken at every major turning point event for the last decade. I will continue to do so. I hope people like yourself. I've seen you there a bunch. I hope we all stay engaged, and maybe there comes another light like Charlie that can take the helm and do all of that. But in the meantime, I think for the first time ever, we as a party, we do have a great bench of talent who aren't just mainstream folks. They're guys that will do this, that have followings, that are, again, unafraid, who are willing to do that, who can articulate those things. And I think if we all band together, and none of the infighting, I guess we'll probably always have some infighting with sort of the Washington establishment who wants to go back to the good old ways because there's no consequence to them. But if the whole entirety of the America First MAGA movement bands together, and does this, I think we have an incredible future. And I think Charlie was one of the great people who truly created and paved that path for us.
Yeah, he led by example. It's 1:45 Thursday afternoon, and as of this hour, we still haven't caught his killer. You saw the update at the top of the show. The FBI put out a picture. What do you believe, Don? Do you think we're going to get this guy?
I sure hope so. If you've gone through sort of what I've gone through, Megyn, over the last, again, 8-9 years between, Russia, the assassination attempts on my father, I wish I had more faith in our institutions. And it's why, again, we have to be so involved so that we can actually decide the people who put this in. You can't just elect a president and walk away. You need all of those other steps because there's a whole bureaucracy that needs to be replaced. And there's a lot of other people that have to go into those things. So, I certainly hope so. I do believe so many of the people in American law enforcement, they're on our side. The door kickers, those guys, they're doing they're going to do whatever it takes. But unfortunately for me right now, it is difficult to not be a cynic, given everything I've seen and experienced. I sort of always use the example of Russia with me. When they started it, I was the number 2 target of this whole hoax. And even me at the time as a target that they want to jail for life or to the death penalty, as Adam Schiff had said, it's like, well, there has to be something here, guys. The FBI said it. I took 1,000 selfies yesterday. Maybe someone was in the room that was from Russia. I don't even I wanted to legitimately believe. And so, I come at this as a cynic from experience, but I do think, the team as led by Cash and Dan Bongino, these people do. They are believers. I know there's incredible people on the ground. So I truly hope they do. I really want to believe, but until it happens, I'm just going to pray.
Mm-hmm. It's the anniversary of 9/11. After 9/11 happened, I know you guys are New Yorkers. One of the things we did was we bought stock to send a message to the terrorists that they weren't going to change anything about America for the worse, that they hadn't shut us down, that we were still going to do all the things they hated about us. And here we are again, right, on 9/11. And I wonder if there's anything you think we can or should do right now to send a similar message to the people who are taking out our people, to the assassins who are trying to take out our people in what your dad accurately called last night, terrorism.
Yeah, I think it's band together, be unafraid, speak your mind, and don't ever stop. That's what Charlie, he opened the door for us to do that. He showed so many people the way to actually do that. And I think we can do that. And with that, I think we can win. After 9/11, obviously as a New Yorker and with friends there, obviously Howard Lutnick lost his entire office. Our commerce secretary, the dear friend for decades. We were there. And when it happened, this tragedy was just so terrible. The greatest terror attack on American soil since Pearl Harbor, probably by numbers ever. And yet in New York, this rough and tumble city, the months, even the years following, I mean, there was a different mindset. People were kinder to each other. They were friendly. It was like I got back to New York. I was, basically right out of college. I was like, what's going on here? I mean, it was a different vibe. Now, again, some of that got more radicalized. It's a little scary to think of what's going on in New York with this coming election. But I think you can, turn that tragedy and try to get something positive for our country. I think that's what Charlie would have wanted. I know that's what he was fighting for each and every day. And again, I think if we do that, we can preserve that legacy and make sure that it never dies.
Donald Trump Jr., God bless you, your dad, your entire family. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Megyn. I really appreciate it.
Oh, we're very lucky to have him. Very lucky to have the Trump family willing to serve, notwithstanding the enormous risks to all of them, too, and to those who support them and have stood side by side with them, like Charlie. We'll be right back with Benny and Tucker. You might know the feeling of FOMO, fear of missing out, but here is one thing you do not want to miss: protecting your future with life insurance. For about the price of one streaming service, you can get the coverage you need with SelectQuote. Even if this is your first time thinking about life insurance, they make it simple. For over 40 years, SelectQuote has helped more than 2 million Americans secure more than $700 billion in coverage. Okay, let me tell you why I'm laughing. Because this is a life insurance ad that began with talking about your fear of FOMO. So it's like, yeah, you are going to mow. Kind of the rest of eternity, you're going to be mowing. There's really nothing any life insurance company can do about it. But SelectQuote has nonetheless helped millions of people who want to at least plan for the people who remain to be well looked after. Now, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. This is a broker. They're going to work for you for free. They're going to compare policies from trusted, top-rated companies to match your health, lifestyle, and budget. Some providers even offer same-day coverage. That's good, with no medical exam. Even better. And if you've got a pre-existing condition, no problem. SelectQuote partners with companies that cover people with high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease. Life insurance is never cheaper than it is today. Get the right life insurance for you for less and save more than 50% at SelectQuote.com/Megyn. SelectQuote.com/Megyn, so you do not have FOMO. A couple of headlines for you now before we get to our next guest. The FBI just announcing that it is offering a reward of up to $100,000 now for information leading to the identification and arrest of the individual, parentheses, S. They don't know how many are responsible for the murder of Charlie Kirk on September 10th, 2025, quoting here, at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI. And they're asking for people to submit photos and video if they have, like, that's for you, Utah students who are out there, at FBI.gov/Utah Valley. I'm just trying to get the exact, I'm just clicking on the link here so I can get you the exact full. I don't see it. I'll get you. I don't know. We'll put it. But in any event, they want you to call them at 1-800-CALL-FBI. That's the FBI with a $100,000 reward now for information leading to the identification and arrest of the individuals responsible for Charlie's murder. They're also revealing a picture now of the actual murder weapon recovered from the woods on the trail that they believe the killer took when leaving the campus. It is a bolt-action rifle that was recovered near the scene. The picture was obtained here by the New York Post. A bolt-action rifle, we're told, fires off one bullet at a time. You can pull back the bolt to load the bullet into the chamber. They are used very often by hunters And that seems indeed appropriate because that's exactly what was done to our friend Charlie yesterday. He was hunted by an assassin with his 4 bullets in the chamber, and it only took one to take out one of the most important voices in America. The videos of Charlie's murder are so disturbing and incredibly jarring. I mean, I told you yesterday when we did our live coverage, I really do wish I hadn't seen the one of the up close video. It was the first thing I thought about when I woke up this morning. It was the last thing I thought about last night when I went to sleep. Unfortunately, my son saw it because he's a teenage boy and they all look up to Charlie. And it was big news that he had been shot and killed, and teenagers sometimes forward those things around. And, my son, who's normally very stoic, you could see it, he was jarred by it. Everyone's jarred by it, by his death, by the violence of it, the destruction of a human body in such a violent way, and it belonging to such an important human soul in this case. There are reports that Charlie was wearing a bulletproof vest underneath the shirt. It appeared that way to me as well. And some have speculated that the bullet hit the vest and ricocheted into Charlie's neck. But however the specifics of it went down, and I'm sure we'll have a full forensic accounting, it was an effective shot. Obviously, the assassin had been training for this moment, to take this one shot and have it work from 200 yards away. Right now, one other piece of news, the State Department just putting out, before I get to that, here's the site. If you have pictures of YouTube, it's fbi.gov/Utah Valley shooting, fbi.gov/Utah Valley shooting, or just call the FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI. The State Department putting out the following moments ago. This is from the Deputy Secretary of State. In light of yesterday's horrific assassination of a leading political figure, I want to underscore that foreigners who glorify violence and hatred are not welcome visitors to our country. I've been disgusted to see some on social media praising, rationalizing, or making light of the event, and have directed our consular officials to undertake appropriate action. Good for him. Please feel free to bring such comments by foreigners to my attention so that the State Department can protect the American people. That's great. That's beautiful. Why? They're guests in our home. Get the fuck out if you're going to celebrate the murder of one of our most beloved citizens. You're not allowed to stay here. You have no right to be here. We just now finally have a State Department that recognizes that and will do what it can to protect us. I've done so many turning point events with Charlie, both with him and for him and, on his campus and otherwise. And one of the people you always see when you go to a turning point event is Benny Johnson. He was on the show recently. We were talking about his expose, you may recall, on Jasmine Crockett, woman of the people and, real soul sister of the working class, all a bunch of bullshit exposed by Benny and his trip to her hometown, just like he did for AOC. He's an intrepid reporter. He was a dear friend of Charlie's. Benny had gotten in some sort of social media trouble, some ridiculous thing. And I asked Charlie about it on the show last time he was on, and he started by saying, Benny's a dear friend, and I will never say anything bad about Benny. So obviously he not only cared about him, he cared about protecting him and not jumping in on any storms that would lead people to dislike him, that would besmirch him, because Charlie had been the victim of it himself so many times. Benny's my guest now. Benny, thank you so much for being here. I know it's a hard day for you. Let me just get your reaction now, less than 24 hours after the news.
Well, Megyn, I have not slept, and I stayed up into the small hours of the morning pondering Charlie and what he would want next. And I have 2 thoughts on that. They begin like this. 1, Charlie died as he lived, sharing salt and light in the darkest corners of our country and in our culture. And it is a culture that has been overcome by darkness, and Charlie was a beacon of light. Charlie would want us to carry that beacon forward. Charlie was cut down in the moments his last words were decrying violence and radicalization. of the political left. What do we do next? One, we make Charlie a martyr. Charlie is a martyr for America. He's a martyr for free speech. He is a martyr for peaceful disagreement. He is a martyr for Christendom. And then two, we remember his life. I got to witness up close, Megyn, Charlie's miraculous life, and there's no other way to describe it other than prophetic. Charlie Kirk had a calling on him from a very young age. And as I watched him grow, and as I watched him mature, and as I watched him gain exponential influence on our culture and on our land, and be able to call up President Trump, who viewed Charlie Kirk as a son, as a child, as someone so close to him, I knew that he would become a target. And I believe Charlie knew this as well. And Charlie got struck down by an assassin's bullet because of his power and because of his influence and because of something that we all well knew, those who were close to him, which is that Charlie Kirk would become the president of the United States one day in his life.
Yep.
They sought to cut that life short. And so what must we do now? We must rise up with full hearts and remember who Charlie was and what he stood for. Light in the darkness, truth in the face of evil, fearlessness, and most importantly, and as Charlie has said again and again and again, a desire to evangelize his faith in Christ Jesus our Lord to a lost world that so desperately needs it. And with the last note of his life stating that he wants peace and salvation for this country. Charlie Kirk is an American martyr, a Christian soldier, dying with honor and grace and delivered up to his Lord and Savior, Megyn. And his legacy then passes on to the rest of us in our own poor and inefficient and insufficient ways to carry it forward. God help us. This is America's turning point.
Benny, you know the Turning Point people better than most, and Charlie's friends and family. What kind of contact have you had with them? How is the inner circle doing?
Very poorly. I mean, how do you fill a life like Charlie's? He was a prophet. And I'll just say it. I just don't care anymore. I was able to witness Megyn, Charlie from a very early age. I met Charlie when he was a teenager. I was able to watch him work, and I was able to see God, not only God's hand on what he was building, but also the providence of his actions. Mm-hmm. And I experienced it. And everybody who was near Charlie knew that there was a specific energy that only he had. And sometimes, as it goes with martyrs, you don't even appreciate it when it's right there in front of you. But now looking back, you say, my goodness, God has his hand on this man. And I will never understand why God took him from us. I will never understand why he is gone today, but I do understand what he wanted. And so your question is, how are people holding up? Well, they're holding up exactly the way that Charlie would want us to hold up, because Charlie is right now smiling with that iconic and irreplaceable smile down from heaven on us. And he is saying, buck up. Don't cry. Continue the work. I've built this incredible organization in Turning Point USA. I've begun this movement that has started the process of saving a generation of Americans who followed him by the tens of millions, who listened to his every word, and continue that work. And that is what Charlie has said to me so many times. I'm sure he said it to you in private text messages. He said it to so many hundreds of activists and people of influence, politicians and so on, that Charlie Kirk was there constantly stiffening the spine. It's not our time to cry. It's not our time to be sad. He did this to me after the 2020 election. And his entire team, okay, now we get to work. Good, good. So something terrible happened to us? Good. Now we get to work. And that was the man who Charlie was. Megyn, I'll tell you, I have wept bitterly on my knees. And I've done that in my own private space. And what it will require of us moving forward is to remember that that is not who Charlie was. He was not somebody who ever felt sorry for himself, ever. He was someone who only ever served those around him and built up. And it's not easy to kill a martyr, Megyn. Martyrs get more powerful after their martyrdom. And
Well
what you're
said.
seeing now today is that the world is gathering around Charlie, praying for him and his family and his beautiful wife, Erica. He is survived by Erica and their 2 children. They're gathering around Charlie, and people are now looking with more intensity than ever at what was Charlie saying that got him killed. What was Charlie
That's right.
doing, Megyn, that got him killed? You cut out a man's tongue. You just prove that you're scared of what he's saying. You don't silence him. You actually make him louder. And
now today we get the news that it was about his speech, that it was about his opinions, or so say the bullets that remained chambered. The reporting out of the Wall Street Journal, originally broken by Stephen Crowder, is that the 3 rounds not yet fired had pro-trans, anti-fascist messages written on them. No pictures yet released of that, though I'm sure it's coming. And yet another piece of evidence in that Charlie's haters didn't know him at all. We pulled just this one. We could be here all day playing similar exchanges between Charlie and a trans advocate or activist or someone who said they just were trans at these events. This is the real Charlie Kirk. This is the actual Charlie Kirk and how he handled that issue. Watch.
I just want to say I'm a transgender male. What age should kids be able to get things like hormone therapy? Because I don't know what's true, what's not.
Tell me, are you comfortable telling me your story?
I've known that since like 3rd grade, and I'm currently 19, almost 20. I've known basically since then. I didn't start going by like a different name until 7th and 8th grade. I just don't know, like, with the whole medical stuff, like what's true, what's not, what's helpful, because I've heard so many different opinions.
First of all, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to have an opinion that very few people will ever tell you, which is I want you to be very cautious putting drugs into your system in the pursuit of changing your body. Mm-hmm. I instead encourage you to work on what's going on in your brain first. I think what you need first and foremost is just a diagnosis. Mm-hmm. Just someone that is going to listen to what you've gone through, listen to what else is going on. My prayer for you, and again, very few people will say this, I actually want to see you be comfortable in how you were born.
Yeah.
I know that you might not feel that way, but I think that is something that you can achieve. I think that with the right team and the right people, you don't have to wage war on your body. You can learn to love your body.
It's absolutely beautiful and respectful in its honesty and its frankness. That's who he was. And it appears to have gotten him killed. What of the news, Benny, that this may have been somebody motivated by Charlie's messaging on the trans issue and on, quote, fascism, which is code for Donald Trump on the left?
Well, I want to take a moment here, Megyn, and give your audience a little window into what demonic activity the left has been engaging in from a corporate media level, through a dark money level, through an activist and terrorist level. And the playbook is quite simple. You demonize at a corporate media level. You call everyone Hitler and fascist and irredeemable and deplorable. Then you fund groups to organize against those people who you've demonized. Then you arm them. You ensure that they have a militia-style mindset. This is done through TikTok and mass formation psychosis and the allowance of left-wing violence and the promotion of Luigi-style left-wing murderous terrorism. You lionize and venerate, like the transgender shooter that just massacred children in Minneapolis. You hop people up on pharmaceuticals and drugs to make them out of their mind. And then you say you'd be a hero if you went and shot Hitler. And that's the playbook. And that, I believe, is what needs to be destroyed in this nation. That is a playbook that is going to end in civil war, Megyn. It's something that is going to end horribly in sectarian violence in this country. And the left is running that playbook. We are not. I hear that Joe Biden has terminal cancer. I say prayers and blessings to his family. I think Joe Biden wrecked the country. I think there hasn't been a worse president in my lifetime, but I'm not going to sit there and wish ill on him. Never have I ever wished ill or harm on a fellow American ever, nor will I. That is the difference between us and the animals, Megyn, because they are celebrating right now. They want more of this.
They're
targeting you. They're targeting
sky.
me. Yes. They're saying, who's next? Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly. That's what's happening. That's what needs to be targeted. That is, and I will say it to its face, that is evil, demonic activity from the pit of hell. You have lost your humanity, but it is the end stage of the dehumanization of the other, of your political enemy. And this has been an op that has been run on this country. And Charlie Kirk is, in part, a victim and a martyr because of that op. And shame and a pox on the house and a forever curse on every media organization, including and up to just a few hours ago, Van Jones on CNN, calling Charlie Kirk a demagogue and an irredeemable racist. And that is what Van Jones did on CNN's airwaves. Shame upon all of them. In fact, in just the hours after Charlie Kirk's announcement that he was shot, we didn't even know what was happening. There were guests on MSNBC that were saying he deserved it. These filthy demons. That is the problem, Megyn.
We mentioned this in the Don Jr. interview. I'm going to play it now. Matthew Dowd, who's now been fired from even MSNBC because they had to, sat there across from Katie Tur and said the following in SOT 23 when Charlie was clinging to life.
I emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about this. But following up on what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
That's crazy. He counts himself as a Christian man. He's constantly pushing that online. And as Charlie was lying there dying, that's where he went, Benny. I'll give you the last word.
They just ran this op on my family, and I know they've done the same thing to you, Megyn. The New York Times just ran a piece that said that when my family was in a life-threatening situation that included fire and bullets raining down on our home in Washington, D.C., that they weren't in enough danger for the father of this newborn child to be concerned. That was the premise of a New York Times article on my family just a few weeks ago. This is the mindset of these people, that we are not worthy of sympathy. This is how they think, and it is worth internalizing that. And whether you want to share can you sing Kumbaya and join arms with that? Or is that something that must be defeated? Is that a worldview that is so despicable and so dark that you must actually ensure that it does not continue? Meaning, in a peaceful way, we must set about the business of defeating the evil that stole Charlie from us. And that evil is an inhumane spiritual darkness that has overcome and washed over the left, Megyn. Yep. And you see it in so many examples, but I'll give you just one final one in conclusion. The final one in conclusion is, these are the same people that told us that when President Trump took a bullet to the head, that it was a Republican who did it, that it was a Trump supporter who did it. It's the same playbook. Yep. These people.
Or that it didn't happen at all. That was their other.
It didn't happen at all.
Go-to.
Right. And so that's what we must fight and defeat.
Benny, thank you.
Thank you, Megyn.
You know, he and I are talking about the disgusting media and how they gin up these lies about people. They have no qualms whatsoever about what it will do to your life or your safety. I mean, in the realm of Charlie Kirk, you know, when you look at the public media figures who have been subjected to that kind of targeting, you can't think of one more well-known than Tucker Carlson. The New York Times has literally run front page article after article on him, trying to convince the world that he's a racist, which is a pernicious lie. He was dear friends with Charlie, and he's here next. Don't go away. You know what's crazy? Trusting the government or some random insurance agent to give good Medicare support. That's how people wind up stuck in the wrong plan. Get this. Trump's Department of Justice sued 3 major Medicare brokers for pretending to be unbiased while allegedly pushing people into the plans that got the brokers the biggest kickbacks. Let's be honest, the government made a mess of Medicare, and no one should have to untangle that mess alone. It's overwhelming. This is why I want to tell you about Chapter. Chapter compares every single plan nationwide, not just the ones that pay the biggest commissions. Because of that, they can save people an average of $1,100 a year. That's real dough. So whether you're brand new to Medicare or you've been on it for years, consider making the call and finding out more. If you are already in the best plan, Chapter will tell you. If not, they could help you save thousands. It's free, it's fast, and in less than 20 minutes, they're going to review your options. Call the number 27 Medicare today. That's 27 Medicare. And finally feel confident about your Medicare. I've been talking a lot about Riverbend Ranch lately because their steaks are amazing. Riverbend Ranch has taken Black Angus beef to a whole new level. For the last 35 years, Riverbend Ranch has been creating a very elite Angus herd by using ultrasound to select genetically superior cattle with a focus on flavor and tenderness. When you purchase from Riverbend Ranch, you are not only supporting the 64 cowboys and cowgirls and their families who work on that ranch, but you're also supporting over 260 other U.S. ranches and the hundreds of American families who work on them. It is born in the USA, raised in the USA, and processed in the USA. It's aged to perfection for 21 days and shipped directly from the ranch to your home. This is not your average Black Angus beef. So order from riverbendranch.com. Use the promo code Megyn, and that'll get you $20 off your first order. And let me know what you think. riverbendranch.com, promo code Megyn. Joining me now, Tucker Carlson of the Tucker Carlson Show and tuckercarlson.com. Tucker, it's so awful. I've been really wanting to hear your reaction to the news. I know you were traveling yesterday. Where are you at right now, less than 24 hours later?
Well, I mean, of course, bewildered. I got back last night and stayed up until probably like everybody until 1 a.m, talking to people and texting people, and then, on X, looking at the reaction. And I woke up this morning and I thought to myself, that's really not the way at all, to sit and marinate in the hate, which I did. I couldn't help it. It's like pornography or snuff videos or something. You're just like mesmerized by it. It's like watching, a tragedy over and over. Not the violence, but the hate. I mean, I must have watched 15 videos of young women celebrating Charlie's death. And my first thought was, well, this is obviously some kind of, manufactured attempt to divide the country against itself, and it's probably all fake. And then you look, and it's actually not fake. Here's a teacher from an elementary school in Idaho, and here's a yoga instructor from West Hollywood, and these are like real people with real names. And then you realize, boy, I mean, the depth of evil out there is really overwhelming. Like, what country? What do I know the country? Do I know who lives here? Like, what is this? And I was just, I couldn't turn away. And then I realized when I woke up this morning, that's really hurting me. And I woke up to a group text from my wife, to our family text. Of course, everyone knew Charlie. He was just at our house, and very upset for a bunch of different reasons. And she sent Luke 6, which is like the most radical thing that anyone's ever said. And it's like, no. Love your enemies. Pray for your persecutors. When someone assaults you, don't fight back. Which is impossible, of course. I mean, no one can do that. And it literally takes supernatural intervention for anyone to live that way, much less to feel that way. And that's what's called for, is supernatural intervention. I mean, you can take all kinds of steps. We do need to restore order in the country, and no one's kind of done that for the last 50 years. And this is the end result of true disorder. And by order, by the way, that doesn't mean authoritarian behavior or limiting people's constitutional rights or races. There's nothing like that. I mean, order is the key to happiness and peace. Order is what God creates out of chaos at the beginning of Genesis. Like, order is a prerequisite for joy. So we need order. We don't have it. I hope it's restored. But much more deeply, people need to be transformed and see each other as God sees them, including their enemies, as human beings who are doing bad things but are still created by God. Like, without that worldview, then you descend into hell. In fact, you already live there, which is where, in some sense, we live now. And boy, that just became clear because it happened to me. I mean, I was sitting there fuming and despair and like, by the way, what was this? There's always a lot going on in the backdrop, a lot. And I don't know, of course, the answer. But everyone's got an opinion on that. And it really took me away from Charlie, Erica, and their children, and the things that you should be meditating on and praying about. It just totally took me out of that into this place of hate. And I don't want to go there. So let me just say quickly about Charlie. I've known him since he was a teenager, and just an amazing person. But the two things that stick out, he's a Christian man. And we talked about that a lot, including, just the other day. There's a lot of pressure on public people who run huge, $100 million a year nonprofits, and there are a lot of pitfalls and traps. That's why so many of them are destroyed. And Charlie really did, without, betraying details, like he walked the line for real. It was the topic of many conversations between us because I've seen so many people destroyed. Most people are destroyed by power, and he wasn't. And I just really admire that. I mean, to his last moments, in order, he cared about God, his wife, and his children, and then his country. So, and that was totally real, completely real. I can affirm that because I just talked to him about it so much. And I admire that, and he was a model, really. I mean, he didn't have hate in his heart. And it was funny, and again, it's one of the reasons I couldn't stop looking at these videos last night. People were describing the opposite of what he was. He was filled with hate. No. And if you talk to him about people who had attacked him or who were truly his enemies, up to, and I think including the people who assassinated him yesterday, he would never, ever express hate, ever. He would always turn to, no, this person has been led astray. This person is clearly possessed by dark forces. This person is a perpetrator, but also a victim of evil. I mean, that really was his worldview. That's the Christian worldview. And he expressed that in public and especially in private. And I think that faith, which was completely real, not the fake faith that you see on display so often, but a real one, that was the root of his courage. And he had real courage. He loved being with people who disagreed with him, not theoretically with them, but physically with them, you know, like close enough to smell. He would wait right in the middle of I could tell you a million stories that I saw, but that was absolutely real. Like, he loved people, even people who hated him, and people he loved. He was the rare person who was willing to tell them what he thought was true. I mean, he really believed, as a political matter, by the way, that, you know, I don't think he had animus toward anybody in no other country, but he really believed in his own country and the obligation of his government to stand behind his country. He was truly America first in the nicest, most decent, non-ideological, but sincere way. He was one of the only people, I mean, truly one of the only people to go to the president whom he loved. He loved Donald Trump, like personally as well. And I think the president really loved him in a real way. But he was one of the only people to go to the Oval Office and say, sir, I totally understand and think Iran's really bad, but a war with Iran is not, you know, is something that could really hurt our country. I mean, boy, that was an unpopular position. He didn't need to express it. Oh, of course. And he did it again. He didn't have some weird agenda. He wasn't mad at anybody. He was for his country, and he was for doing the right and wise and difficult thing. And he said that. He went to the Oval Office to say that. He took massive abuse from his own donors, which is also something that you don't see people. And he loved his donors. It wasn't a hostile thing, but they had a different view. A lot of them, not all, but a lot. And they expressed it to him in a very intense way. I know because he showed me. And he said, look, I understand your perspective. This is my perspective, and we're going to do what we think is the right thing, the wise thing.
In that way, too, he was the voice of young people. I mean, there are no young people in the country anymore supporting this war and wanting Israel to continue its bombing campaign. That's just the truth. Look at the polls. And he was in touch with them. And even where his own opinion may have differed from their opinion, he felt like he owed it to them to bring their message to the sitting president of the United States. I mean, that's what's been snuffed out.
Well, as he has been, unfortunately, but he was one of the very few people I have met who combined a love for everyone involved with strong views. So again, he was not animated by anything creepy or weird. I mean, you knew him intimately, so you know this is true. If you talk to him off camera, he would say, you know, I love whoever I'm talking about, but I think this is wrong. It's immoral. It's bad for everybody involved, both sides. And he would say that, and he could say that because it was sincere. It was completely sincere, but I cannot overstate the amount of attacks he took privately over this, like absolutely for real. And having lived in Washington most of my life and seen people run nonprofits, I've never met one who was willing. Stand up is too strong. He wasn't confrontational, but he would just say, no, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I think this is the right thing. The people we represent, which is mostly young people, they believe this, and I believe it also. It was brave, but loving at the same time. And I'm not sure he made a lot of headway, by the way. I mean, I think he made real enemies in doing that, but his view didn't change. Anyway, he was just a wonderfully decent, loving man. That is true.
What do you think about the actual assassination? Who was potentially behind it? Do we believe this business about the New York Times is trying to cast doubt on what was on those cartridges and whether those messages were really there? Not saying it didn't happen, but suggesting like, be careful because it may not be true. And even if it is true, it could be a situation where there's much more to it than what was on those bullets. Do you have any thoughts? Not knowing what the truth is, any thoughts?
Well, of course, I have so many thoughts, but I got a call about an hour ago from one of the very few people I trust in Washington and really love, and like a true friend, who said, I bet like everybody you're tempted to go to dark places or focus on, you know, the violence here or what was clearly a well-planned assassination, and you should just take a break from that. And this is someone who I agree with on everything. It's not, you know, this wasn't trying to control me, but just like out of concern for, you know, me as a person, like you should focus on Charlie and who he was and, you know, proceed with wisdom and restraint. And so that's all I'm going to say. I mean, of course, you can imagine all kinds of things, and I don't think anything is necessarily implausible. I do think that we should always, and I try to live by this, be skeptical of everything that we're presented as a pat explanation for anything. I mean, of course, you know, there's an awful lot of deception in this world, but we shouldn't allow, the potential that what we're hearing is fake to convince us that it is fake before we know that it's fake. In other words, wait for the facts. But I mean, of course, it goes without saying that I would never, after, 35 years of doing this, ever accept the first explanation from anyone. And I mean, literally from anyone. So, so we'll find out. But clearly, the way that it was done with maximum violence with a 30-06, not a 223, by the way.
I don't know guns. What does that mean?
Okay, so the 223, the 5.56, the AR-15 round, the little 22 caliber high pressure round that is, thought to be the most dangerous gun in the world and weapon of war and all this stuff, you're constantly hearing about it, is in fact designed basically to wound under most circumstances. The gun that murdered Charlie was what is often referred to by Chuck Schumer as a deer rifle. But of course, it's a much larger round. It is in fact an old-fashioned military round. It's 30-06, 30 caliber, big round. And that, people who understand guns, I mean, I guess all I'm saying without getting sidetracked is, whoever contemplated this and pulled it off and committed the murder, had thought about it and was clearly, I'm not saying it was, I don't know who it was, but it wasn't clearly not some random guy who got mad yesterday morning and decided to do it. Obviously.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There was great forethought in this. So that's all we know of. Again, I think, my life certainly over the last 10 years proves that I'm not an acceptor of the official story just because it's the official story. By the way, the official story can be right. Just because it's the official story doesn't mean it's a lie. But I think
there can also be more to the official story.
To come to our own. Well, that's true. And part of the problem with living to 56 is you've seen so much, and I grew up around a lot of this stuff already, that you can just get lost in it, completely lost in it, because a lot of things over time that are, the truth about some things. You don't know the truth. I don't know the truth about everything. That's for sure. There are many more things I'm ignorant on that I'm knowledgeable about. However, I've seen enough and been into enough dinners where people are like, well, da-da-da-da-da, and you're thinking to yourself, you have no idea what actually happened. And you can get into a kind of mindset.
Not for nothing, but on that front, Tucker's got a documentary out today on tuckercarlson.com on 9/11 and some hard truths we weren't told. And of course, you're going to be called a conspiracy theorist, as people love to say. But I will say, just this week, Catherine Herridge, who nobody's ever accused of being a conspiracy theorist, has matched some of your reporting, and she's reporting it on X. Sure. So people should check it out. Obviously, he's not.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that we know. Example. Well, look, I don't know. There are a million things I don't know, including what was really going on 9/11. All we proved was that the official story was completely ridiculously false. It doesn't mean that I have a pat explanation for it, and probably never will, and for a million other things. But I guess what I'm saying is, I think that's super important. We need to get to the bottom of it, and to a lot of other things, including the shooting at Butler, which for some reason we still know nothing about. And you can't have a country where someone can try to assassinate the president and then we never get to the bottom of it. It can't continue like that. So we need radical transparency, just what I've been saying for years. But I do think we also need to be mindful that we are in a form of civil war right now. That's obvious. Violence is a huge component of it. You don't want it to become a bigger component of it. And what's the answer to that? And I've just been around a couple wars and I don't want that. And I certainly don't want it here. There are really no winners, and its effects last for generations, centuries, really. And so what is the answer? And the answer is to see one another as God sees us. It doesn't mean to excuse inexcusable behavior. It doesn't mean moral relativism. It means exactly the opposite of moral relativism. It means recognizing that we are created by a creator, all of us, no matter what our views or our appearance, all of us, and proceed with that in mind always. It doesn't mean excusing murder or anything else, or pretending that transgenderism is not evil. It's evil, but it means remembering always that these are human beings, okay? And I just know from my experience online I don't go online all that much, but oh my gosh, I'm how did this young sort of pretty yoga instructor from West Hollywood become genocidal and become totally indifferent to the murder of my friend? How could this even be?
It's too dark to take in. And of course, that's downstream
from... but it's a lot of people have become that way, and don't become
you meander
that way.
Over to
Don't
Blue
become
Sky,
that way.
It's a dark couple of hours. Do you Do you worry, Tucker? People have asked me this in the last 24 hours, and I'll ask you the question. You know, there's not another more prominent news person than you, and there's not one that's been attacked with the same terms they used against Charlie that have been used against me too, than you. So do you worry now? Because the shooter's at large, and even once they catch this guy, and I think they will catch this guy, he's not the only deranged person out there or agenda-driven.
I mean, I kind of don't want to answer the question, but if I'm being, okay, I will. Yeah, I mean, I've had some things happen in the last few years that I'm never going to talk about because my family doesn't want me to, but like, I've had cause to think about this a lot. And I really feel like it's up to God. I really sincerely feel that. Now, I have a very big family. I'm at the head of the family, so I have concerns that extend far beyond me, and that is a subject of prayer every single day, including this morning. But I don't think that we can choose the time. I don't think we can extend our lives. I really believe, and I really mean it when I say this, I'm not just posing, that all of this is in God's hands. So I do believe that. It doesn't make me not take precautions or whatever. Actually, it has made me not take precautions, but I've been encouraged to take precautions anyway. So I'm not actually worried. I mean, I've had several things that I consider very, very close calls. And so over the last 20 years, so I've thought about it a lot. And I feel, I just feel sad for Charlie's family. I feel sorry for Erica in a way that's really kind of hard to express. And it's definitely not about me. And we set up a fund for Erica and the children. I think it's going to go online in a minute. We seeded it with a bunch of money, and I hope others will follow because.
Amen.
Because I think, I mean, what can you do? I mean, I don't have it. I mean, I talk for a living. I've written a bunch of books. I feel like I'm more eloquent than average. I have nothing wise or edifying to say. You stare in the face of a 31-year-old man assassinated, obviously to send a message to the rest of us. And it's like, what do you say? I have nothing to say.
I know. That's how I felt yesterday when it was unfolding. It was like, I wish I had some profundity to offer. It's hard to know even where to categorize this. It does feel like a before and after moment. It feels like a before and after moment. We haven't seen open season on political commentators before. It does feel like it's evil incarnate, that we have to accept there's evil amongst us. You see a bunch of Christian children shot down in their school church. That's evil. There's not a lot of other words for it. But as with all these situations, in order to go forward, you have to look for the helpers, Mr. Rogers style. You're one of them here. J.D. Vance, an amazing post online last night talking about how much Charlie meant to him. And this just came in as we were talking, Tucker. The New York Times reporting that Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife Usha, we knew that they were planning on going and meeting with Charlie's family. But now it comes out that they are meeting with them, in Salt Lake City. That's where Charlie's body was brought there. And that Kirk's family and friends, as well as his casket, will then be flown on Air Force 2 to Phoenix, Arizona. This is where Charlie lived, in Arizona. According to an official familiar with the matter, Vance is retrieving Kirk's casket while paying his respects. That's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary, and I would say J.D. Vance is an extraordinary man. It's not like any other politician I've ever met in a lifetime of knowing them. So I will say that.
He talked about how
saying that, but it's true.
No, but he talked about in his post last night about how he'd been on your show a couple times and Charlie helped him and gave him some advice, and Charlie brought him through some rooms when he hadn't even yet declared for Senate, and kind of gave him feedback on like, maybe this is something you could do that's great. It was always there. That even when he became a public figure and was thrust into the national spotlight as VP nominee, his kids were thrown. Like, this was a lot of attention. Charlie was one of the first to call and repeatedly check on how they were doing. I mean, it's just such a, I know you knew him well. Mark Halpern, I asked you this one time you were on, had said that you and Don Jr. and Charlie Kirk, he described you as the board of directors, to Trump. You humbly said no, but you knew him well. You talked to him all the time. It's just trying to understand the void that's been left by this senseless murder it feels impossible.
I agree with that, but I do think it makes a kind of sense. I mean, above all, Charlie represented belief in God, and that is the divide. I'm sorry to say that, and I'm certainly not trying to inspire religious-based conflict. It's a contradiction in terms. Read Luke 6. I mean, Jesus does not endorse violence. Honestly, even in self-defense, he says. So, people can grapple with that as they will, but that's what it says. And so I am totally opposed to violence, but that is the dividing line. It's not left or right, Republican, Democrat, trans, straight, or whatever. There's an effort to recast this as a different kind of contest between worldviews. The dividing line is, do you think God exists or do you think you are God? And it's that simple. It has always been that simple. It will never change. And I think our souls are at stake. I really, really believe that. I think Jesus is the only answer. Sorry. And that is in some ways a very triggering thing to say, and which tells you right there.
Too bad.
That it's true. Yeah. Well, it's true. And I'm not saying that to provoke. I'm saying that because I believe it. And it is the only answer, because you can see exactly where this goes. And so, the one religion in the world that stands up and says no, and then is hated for it, like that tells you this is a spiritual war. And that's the only way out. And I've thought a lot about this. And the last thing I'll say, you said now they're killing commentators, but as you know, since you're in this business, ask anyone in this business, has anyone ever tried to do this to you? And you'll find a lot of people who will say yes. This has been going on a while, actually, and no one wants to talk about it. It freaks your family out when you talk about it, but in public. But the truth is, this has been, whatever this is not new, and I'm just so sad.
They got one.
Truly sad.
They got one, Tucker, and that's why I say it's a before and after moment. It's a before and after, because now. No,
it's true.
Now you have to grapple with copycats. Now you have to grapple with this as an option, in the same way that Columbine crossed a line and created this new genre of violence. This is potentially where we're at now with political dialogue, and it's so antithetical to, yes, goodness and Christianity and all of it, but also just to the First Amendment and being an American.
Yes, that's right. Well, which is based on Christianity, by the way. We have a First Amendment because we believe God gave us the right to decide and to say what we think. It's the only reason we have the Bill of Rights. I
don't know. I worry about whether this is a tipping point, a turning point, sure, for the country in a negative way. That this could be a descent into something, this could be the beginning of a descent into something even darker, right? As opposed to a period at the end of some terrible things that have been happening. What do you see?
I just want to repeat, I've gotten hundreds, of course, of texts, and they're all the same. I'm so sorry. I know you were close to him. Be safe. And I appreciate every single one. I've responded with gratitude to every one. But the one that stands out among the hundreds and hundreds I've received comes from my cousin Jake, who's one of the wisest people I know. And he said, I'm not praying for your safety. I'm praying that you would more fervently seek wisdom than ever before. That just stuck out to me right there. It's seek wisdom more than ever before, fervently. That's what we need to do. You can't protect yourself you should be reasonable, of course. I'm not preaching recklessness, but I'm saying the goal is wisdom. Seek wisdom. And you go through these texts and that one, that's the truth right there.
Well, that's why we called you. Check.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what, the one I've been
doing okay.
I'm doing fine, thank you. I've been repeating, St. Michael prayer and praying that he'll help defend us against the wickedness and snares of the devil, which seem ubiquitous these days. Tucker,
deliver us from the evil one. Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate
stay
it.
well. Obviously, stay well, and
Megyn.
Everybody. Check out Tucker's latest podcast, by the way, with Sam Altman of ChatGPT, which we didn't even get to, but basically there's an extraordinary exchange that you need to see. Okay, we got to run because we're out of time, but I want to thank all of you for rejoining us again today. Don't forget, the FBI is still asking for you to call them if you have any information. They need your help. They put out a $100,000 reward. It's 1-800-CALL-FBI. They still do not have the shooter in custody. Say a prayer for Charlie's family and for the second family, the Vances, who are going to have a very difficult job ahead of them today. That's a very noble and brave thing to do, but it's going to be a tough day. He was supposed to be at the Ground Zero 9/11 commemoration. And before we go, all my sympathies and heart goes out to the families of the 9/11 victims. My son and others were planting flags at their school this morning in commemoration of their loss, and they added one extra flag, one for Charlie Kirk. They all died for the same thing, standing up for American freedoms, because they lived it every day. We'll see you tomorrow.